When I think about generosity and people, I guess the foundation of all of my thoughts and feelings about money and giving and generosity stem from my relationship with my mother and dad. My dad was very generous with his money. My mother, on the other hand, didn't work outside the home, so her generosity was more in form of the gifts and the talents and the service that she could provide and the witness that she provided. So my foundation was formed very early on, and what I remember very clearly was a time when every Saturday night before we went to church on Sunday morning, Dad would gather Mother and I around the kitchen table, and we would talk about money. They would talk about money. I really didn't know what was going on, except I was a kid, about 5 years old, so you can imagine that I really wasn't very familiar with what they were talking about. But the bottom line was, each Sunday morning, Mother would prepare an envelope with my mother and Dad's tithe, their tithe, and then she would prepare a second envelope for me, and in it she put 2 quarters, 1 quarter for the building fund, 1 quarter for the general fund. I didn't even know what that meant, but it meant something to me to see her and my dad take that much time and effort to cover what they wanted to do for God in terms of their generosity and their giving in relation to the budget and the building fund. Everything that I believe about money stems from that relationship, I think, that I had with them and watching them grow and develop. I knew and understood as a young person the importance of giving, but I didn't have anything to give at that time as a child. But as I grew, and I grew away from the church for a period of time, but then I returned to the church probably when I was near 30 years of age. And when I returned with a different sort of feeling. I wanted to give, but I didn't have anything to give. I didn't have enough money left over. I tried all sorts of approaches to giving and being generous. I even tried to wait until the end of the month and see if there was anything left, and whatever was left, I'd give, and there was never enough. And I think it was at that time that I really began to develop what I call my 3 P's of giving and generosity. The first P is, it must be very personal. When I was young and a child, I knew about Jesus and I knew about God, but I didn't know them personally. When I began to build a relationship by coming back to the church, attending Bible study and worship, I began to understand and not just know about them, I knew them personally. And it made it much easier for me to make a commitment to them. The second P that impacted my life was a percentage. God doesn't require any more of you than He does of me. He requires the same thing of all of us, and that is that biblical, I think, goal of the tithe. And that's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to be a tither, and I don't know why, but it was important to me, and I worked toward it. I couldn't do it from the very beginning, but step by step, year by year, I would add to it. And it always impressed me that no matter what I had, how much or how little, it was really about requiring the same amount from all of us, the rich man, the poor man. And then when I found out about the widow's mite, it really impacted me that it wasn't a percentage for her. She gave all she had. So it really began to change the way I looked at things. And the final P, very important to me in that it has to be a priority. I couldn't wait to the end of the month to see what was left. I made my commitment. We made our commitment, Brenda and I, at the beginning of the month. And it was based upon a tithe percentage. And then as we grew and began to mature as Christians, we wanted to do more than just tithe. We wanted to give sacrificially. And that's when I think I began to find out there are two principles, I think, with God that stood out to me. Number one, if you can't give cheerfully, don't even bother. My mother always said, if you can't give it cheerfully, leave it in your pocket, because it doesn't mean anything. And the second thing was, no matter how much we gave, no matter how much we wanted to give, God always found a way to outgive us. It's the strangest thing. We cannot outgive God. And it was so important for me to begin to understand that. And I think that was kind of the culmination of my thoughts about generosity. Give all you can with the generosity and the cheerfulness, and let God take care of the rest.